The gunman's finger tightened on the trigger, aimed straight at billionaire Victoria Sterling's heart. Airport security guard Mark Johnson had one split second to choose: protect his own life for his hungry daughter Emma, or dive into the line of fire for a complete stranger who'd never noticed him. Before watching full story, comment below from where you watching. Also like and subscribe for more stories. Mark Johnson looked at his empty fridge with tired eyes. His 7-year-old daughter Emma was drawing at their old wooden table with broken crayons. A red paper on the counter said, "Final warning, for rent," in big letters. "Daddy, I'm hungry," Emma said quietly, not looking up from her drawing. Mark felt his heart break into pieces. He had given her his last piece of bread that morning for breakfast. He had no job for 3 long months now. His wife Sarah had left them 2 years ago because she said she could not handle being a mother. She packed her bags one night and never came back. "Let me find something for you, sweetheart," Mark said with a forced smile. He searched through all the empty cupboards again. Behind some old plates, he found one can of chicken soup that was almost expired. Emma showed him her drawing while he heated the soup on their old stove. It was 2 stick figures holding hands under a colorful rainbow drawn with her worn-out crayons. "This is us when we are happy," she said with innocent eyes. Mark knelt down and hugged her tight, trying not to cry. "We are happy right now, Emma. We have each other, and that is everything." But deep inside, Mark was terrified and desperate. They had to pay rent in just 3 days or they would be thrown out on the street. He had applied to dozens of jobs but nobody wanted to hire him. The bills kept coming and his savings were completely gone. That night, after Emma fell asleep in their shared bed, Mark sat at the kitchen table looking through job listings on his old laptop. The battery was dying and he could not afford to fix it. He felt like a complete failure as a father. Next morning, Mark saw a job advertisement for airport security guard. The pay was not much, barely enough to survive, but it was hope. He ironed his only nice shirt and took the bus to the airport for the interview. The bus fare cost his last $2. "Mr. Johnson, you have no experience in security work," the hiring manager said, looking at Mark's thin resume. "That is true, sir. But I work very hard and I am honest. I will do anything to provide for my daughter. She is all I have in this world," Mark replied with desperation in his voice. The manager studied Mark's face for a long moment. Something about his sincerity and determination made an impression. "Okay. I will give you a 1-week trial period. Do not mess this up because I am taking a big risk on you." Mark started work the very next day. The job was harder than he expected. Long 12-hour shifts, dealing with rude passengers, standing on his feet all day until they hurt terribly. His back ached and his legs were sore. But every dollar he earned meant food for Emma and hope for their future together. Emma stayed with Mrs. Chin, their kind elderly neighbor from apartment 2B, after school every day. Mrs. Chin was a sweet Chinese lady whose own children lived far away. She never asked for money even though Mark knew she did not have much either. "You are a very good father," Mrs. Chin told him one evening when he came to pick up Emma. "That little girl loves you more than anything. Emma is very lucky to have you." Mark worked extra shifts whenever they were available, sometimes 16 hours a day. He saved every single penny he could. Very slowly, week by week, things started getting just a little bit better. They could buy real food instead of just soup and crackers. 3 weeks into his new job, Mark was working the morning shift at Gate 15. It was a busy Tuesday and many flights were delayed because of bad weather. Passengers were angry and complaining loudly about everything. That is when he first saw her walking through the terminal like she owned the place. Victoria Sterling stepped out of a shiny black limousine with tinted windows. She was the powerful CEO of Sterling Industries, one of the biggest and most successful companies in the entire city. Everyone knew her face from newspapers, television, and business magazines. She was flying to New York for a very important business meeting that could make or break a $1 million deal. Victoria walked quickly through the airport with her team of assistants and bodyguards, talking rapidly on her expensive phone about complicated business deals worth millions of dollars. She wore an expensive designer suit and carried a leather briefcase that probably cost more than Mark made in 6 months. Mark checked her passport and boarding documents like he did for every other passenger, being professional and polite. "Have a safe trip, ma'am," he said respectfully. She barely looked at him, just nodded quickly and hurried toward her gate where a private jet was waiting. To her, Mark was just another invisible security guard, not worth a second thought. But that is when Mark noticed something that made his blood run cold. A man in a wrinkled gray jacket had been following Victoria ever since she entered the airport terminal. He kept looking around nervously like a scared animal and touching something hidden inside his jacket. His hands were shaking and sweat was running down his face even though the airport was air-conditioned. Mark's basic security training kicked into high gear. He watched the suspicious man very carefully through the crowd. Something was definitely wrong with this picture. The man's behavior was not normal at all. Victoria was now sitting in the exclusive VIP waiting area, still talking importantly on her phone about business deals and stock prices. The strange man in the gray jacket was getting closer and closer to her, pretending to read a magazine, but his eyes never left her face. Mark grabbed his security radio with trembling hands. "Control, this is Mark at gate 15. I have a very suspicious person near the VIP area. He has been following a passenger." "Copy that, Mark. Keep watching him closely and report any changes," came the crackling reply through his radio. Mark's heart started beating faster as he watched the scene unfold. Other passengers were walking around normally, completely unaware of the danger that was building right in front of them. Suddenly, without any warning, the man dropped his magazine and reached inside his jacket. Mark saw the flash of metal as the man pulled out a black handgun. People started screaming and running in all directions like scared animals. Children were crying, mothers were grabbing their babies, and chaos erupted throughout the terminal. "Victoria Sterling," the gunman shouted at the top of his lungs, pointing the weapon directly at her. "You destroyed my life. You fired me from your company and ruined everything. You took away my job, my house, my family. Now you will pay." Mark did not stop to think about his own safety. He did not think about Emma needing her father. He did not think about getting hurt or killed. He just saw an innocent person in deadly danger and knew he had to act immediately. When the crazed gunman raised his weapon toward Victoria's chest, Mark ran straight at him as fast as his legs could carry him. Time seemed to slow down as he covered the distance between them. The gun went off with a loud bang just as Mark tackled the attacker with all his strength. White-hot pain exploded through Mark's left shoulder as the bullet tore through his flesh, but he held onto the gunman with his good arm until other security officers arrived and wrestled the weapon away. Victoria was completely safe, though shaking with terror and shock. Mark collapsed on the cold airport floor, bleeding heavily from his shoulder wound. His white security shirt was turning bright red with blood. Before he passed out from pain and blood loss, he saw Emma's colorful rainbow drawing in his wallet that he always carried with him. He thought about how much he loved her and hoped she would be okay without him. Mark woke up in a clean hospital bed 2 full days later. His left shoulder was wrapped in thick white bandages and his arm was held in a cloth sling. The pain was intense and throbbing, but he was alive and grateful for that. "Daddy? Daddy?" Emma's sweet voice filled the quiet hospital room. She ran to his bedside very carefully, trying not to hurt him. Mrs. Chen was right behind her with tears of joy and relief streaming down her wrinkled face. "I was so scared, Daddy," Emma cried, holding his good hand gently. "The doctor said you might not wake up. I prayed for you every night." "I am okay now, sweetie," Mark whispered softly, using his good hand to stroke her soft hair. "Daddy is going to be just fine." The doctor came into the room wearing a white coat and carrying a clipboard. "Mr. Johnson, you are a real hero. The bullet went straight through your shoulder muscle, but it missed all the important parts like arteries and bones. You will need physical therapy for a few weeks, but you will recover completely with no permanent damage." "What about my job at the airport?" Mark asked worriedly. He knew he could not afford to lose his income. "Do not worry about work right now. Focus all your energy on getting better and healing," the doctor said kindly before leaving the room. That same evening, a smiling nurse brought Mark the biggest flower arrangement he had ever seen in his life. It had roses, lilies, and flowers he could not even name. The small card attached said in elegant handwriting, "Thank you for saving my life. I will never forget your courage. Victoria Sterling." Mark stared at the expensive card for a long time. He had just done what any decent person would do. He did not expect anything in return, especially not from someone as rich and important as Victoria Sterling. 5 days later, Mark was back home in their small apartment. His arm was still in the sling and he could not work or even do simple things like tie his shoes. The hospital bills were already piling up on their kitchen table, and he was worried about money all over again. Emma was being extra helpful, trying to button his shirts and make him simple meals with her small hands. She was such a good, caring little girl. They were sitting together on their old couch when someone knocked loudly on their apartment door. Mark was not expecting any visitors. Mark opened the door slowly and could not believe what he saw with his own eyes. Victoria Sterling herself was standing right there in his narrow hallway, wearing a simple but expensive dress and holding a large manila envelope in her manicured hands. "Mr. Johnson? I am Victoria Sterling. May I please come inside your home?" Mark was completely shocked and could barely speak. "Yes, of course, please come in." But I have to ask, why are you here? How did you even find my address? Victoria stepped inside and looked around their tiny apartment with curious eyes. She saw Emma's colorful drawings taped to the refrigerator, their second-hand furniture that Mark had bought at thrift stores, and the small but clean space they called home. I came here to thank you properly for what you did, Victoria said softly. You saved my life without even knowing me. I can never truly repay that debt, but I want to try my best. Emma peeked out shyly from behind her father's legs. Are you the important lady that Daddy saved? Victoria's expression softened immediately when she saw the little girl. Yes, I am. And you must be Emma. Your daddy is the bravest and most selfless man I have ever met in my entire life. I know that, Emma said with pride shining in her eyes. My daddy is the very best daddy in the whole wide world. Victoria's eyes filled with tears that she tried to hide. She had never had children of her own. Her whole adult life had been focused only on building her business empire and making money. But seeing this precious little girl's pure, innocent love for her father touched something very deep inside her heart that had been cold for years. Mr. Johnson, I have a business proposition for you, Victoria said, sitting down carefully at their small kitchen table. Ma'am, you really do not need to do anything for us. I just did what was right. Any decent person would have done the same thing, Mark replied honestly. That is exactly why I am here, Victoria said with intensity in her voice. In my business world, people usually only do things that benefit themselves somehow. You risked your own life for a complete stranger without thinking about personal gain. That kind of genuine selflessness is incredibly rare these days. She opened the manila envelope and pulled out several official-looking documents and papers. I am offering you a position as head of security for all of Sterling Industries. The starting salary is $80,000 per year, plus full health insurance coverage, dental and educational benefits for Emma. Mark's mouth fell open in complete shock. Ma'am, I do not know what to say. That is more money than I have ever seen in my entire life. I barely finished high school. There is more, Victoria continued with a small smile. The company will pay for Emma's complete education all the way through college, including private schools if she wants them. And there is a signing bonus of $50,000 to help with your current medical bills and to get you both moved into a proper home. Emma stared with her eyes opened as wide as saucers. Daddy, does this mean we will never be hungry again? Mark's heart broke and healed at the exact same time. He knelt down to Emma's eye level, ignoring the pain in his shoulder. No, my sweet girl. We will never be hungry again. We will never have to worry about having enough food or a place to live. In just 1 month, their entire world changed completely. Mark and Emma moved out of their tiny apartment into a beautiful 2-bedroom place near Emma's new private school. The apartment had big windows, a real dining room, and Emma even had her own bedroom decorated with her artwork. Even though Mark had no experience in corporate security, Victoria personally spent time training him herself. She taught him about protecting buildings, managing security teams, and understanding business operations. You have something that cannot be taught in any school or training program, Victoria told him during one of their sessions. You have natural integrity, genuine courage, and strong moral character. The technical security knowledge you can learn easily. Mark worked harder than he had ever worked in his life. He studied security manuals, learned about the latest technology, and proved every single day that Victoria's faith in him was completely justified. He never wanted to let her down after she had given them such an incredible opportunity. Emma was absolutely thriving in her new environment. She had beautiful new clothes, all the school supplies she could ever want, and for the first time in her young life, she never worried about whether there would be food for dinner. She made lots of new friends at her school and joined the art club where her creative talents really began to shine. But perhaps the biggest and most surprising change of all was happening inside Victoria herself. As the weeks and months passed by, Victoria found herself visiting Mark's security office much more often than was necessary for business reasons. She would ask about Emma's progress in school, how Mark was adjusting to his new responsibilities, and gradually their conversations became more personal and friendly rather than just professional. I have never had a real family, Victoria admitted to Mark one quiet afternoon when most of the other employees had gone home. I spent my entire adult life building this company and making money, but I never took time to build meaningful relationships with people. Watching you with Emma every day makes me realize what I have been missing all these years. Mark was surprised by her honest confession. It is never too late in life to start building those relationships. Family is not always about blood. Sometimes it is about the people who choose to love and care for each other. One Friday evening, Victoria was still working late at the office when Mark was finishing his final security rounds for the day. Through the big glass windows, she saw Emma sitting patiently in the lobby downstairs, reading a library book and waiting for her father. "Why is Emma here so late tonight?" Victoria asked with concern. "Her after-school art program ended early today, and Mrs. Chin is visiting her sister in another city for the weekend. I could not leave work early, so Emma is waiting for me to finish my rounds," Mark explained apologetically. Victoria looked down at the sweet little girl sitting alone with her book and made an immediate decision. "Please bring her up here to my office. She can wait here where it is more comfortable." Emma was nervous about meeting the powerful CEO lady who was her father's boss, but Victoria was surprisingly gentle and kind with her. "What book are you reading tonight?" Victoria asked, sitting down next to Emma on the comfortable leather couch. "It is about a brave princess who saves her entire kingdom from an evil dragon," Emma said shyly, showing Victoria the colorful cover. "That sounds like an exciting adventure story. I have always loved reading about strong, brave women who can take care of themselves." They talked together about books, school subjects, art projects, and Emma's dreams for the future. Victoria was genuinely amazed by how intelligent, creative, and thoughtful this 7-year-old girl was. When Mark finished his security work an hour later, he found them sitting together drawing pictures and laughing like old friends. "Emma is extremely talented at art," Victoria told Mark seriously. "Has she ever had any formal art training or lessons?" "We never could afford things like art classes before," Mark admitted, feeling embarrassed about their past financial struggles. The very next week, Victoria secretly enrolled Emma in the most prestigious art academy in the entire city. When Mark found out and protested that it was too much and too expensive, Victoria simply said, "Please think of it as an investment in her bright future." Several more months passed peacefully. Victoria started joining Mark and Emma for dinner at their apartment sometimes, usually bringing expensive takeout food from fancy restaurants. She taught Emma about business and leadership, while Emma taught Victoria about simple joy, laughter, and what it meant to love someone unconditionally. "You know something," Victoria said thoughtfully one evening as the three of them were walking together through the city park near their home. "I used to work 7 days a week, including every weekend. I thought that constant work was the definition of success and achievement. But this, spending relaxed time with you too, this feels like real success and happiness." Emma reached out and took Victoria's hand naturally as they walked. "You feel like family to us now." Victoria stopped walking completely and tears filled her eyes. "Do you really mean that?" "Of course I mean it," Emma said with the honest simplicity that only children possess. "Daddy, can Victoria be my mom?" Mark's face turned bright red with embarrassment. "Emma, sweetheart, that is not exactly how these things work in real life." But Victoria knelt down to Emma's eye level right there on the park path. "I would be deeply honored and proud to be part of your family, Emma. But only if your daddy thinks that would be okay too." Mark looked at this remarkable woman who had completely transformed their lives in every possible way. She was not just his boss anymore or even just a friend. She had become their supporter, their protector, and yes, someone he had grown to care about very deeply in his heart. One full year after the terrible shooting at the airport, Victoria had a very special surprise planned. She told Mark that she needed him to stay late at the office for an important security project that could not wait. When Mark arrived at the Sterling Industries building that evening, he found the main conference room decorated beautifully with dozens of Emma's colorful artwork pieces hanging on the walls. Victoria was waiting there, wearing a simple but elegant dress instead of her usual strict business suit. "What is all this about?" Mark asked, looking around in confusion and wonder. Emma suddenly ran out from behind a large potted plant where she had been hiding. "Surprise, Daddy?" Victoria smiled nervously, her hands shaking slightly. "Mark, this past year has been the absolute best year of my entire life. Emma has taught me how to laugh again, how to find joy in small things. You have shown me what real strength and courage look like. I love you both more than I ever thought it was possible to love anyone." She slowly got down on one knee and pulled out a small velvet ring box from her purse. "Mark Johnson, will you marry me? Will you please let me be Emma's mom and your wife for the rest of our lives?" Mark stared in complete shock, unable to speak or even breathe properly. "Victoria, I say yes, Daddy," Emma shouted excitedly, jumping up and down. "Please say yes. I want Victoria to be my mom so badly." Mark laughed through the happy tears that were streaming down his face. "Yes, yes, of course, yes. There is nothing in this world I want more." 6 months later, they had a small but absolutely perfect wedding ceremony in the same city park where they used to take their evening walks together. Emma was the flower girl, wearing a beautiful white dress that she had helped design herself with input from Victoria. Mrs. Chen was there crying tears of pure joy and pride. Mark's few friends from his security job came to celebrate. Victoria's business associates and employees were completely surprised to see their tough, no-nonsense CEO looking so relaxed and genuinely happy. During their wedding vows, Mark said with his voice full of emotion, "Victoria, you saved us just as much as I saved you that day at the airport. You gave us a new life filled with possibilities, but more importantly than that, you gave us love." Victoria replied through her own happy tears, "Mark, you showed me that the most important and valuable things in life are not found in boardrooms or bank accounts. They are found in quiet moments like this, surrounded by people who love you no matter what happens." Emma walked up to them during the middle of the ceremony and handed them both new drawings she had made. "This is our new complete family." The beautiful picture showed all three of them standing under a bright rainbow, holding hands with a nice house and a friendly dog in the background. "Can we please get a dog now?" Emma asked hopefully, making everyone at the wedding laugh out loud, including the minister. 2 years after their wedding, Mark was promoted to Director of Security for all of Sterling Industries. He had earned the important position through pure hard work, dedication, and by proving every single day that Victoria's initial faith in him had been completely justified. Emma, now 10 years old, was doing wonderfully in her private school and advanced art classes. Her beautiful paintings and drawings were displayed proudly all over their spacious new home. She called Victoria Mom, naturally and honestly could not remember a time when Victoria was not part of their loving family. Victoria had transformed dramatically as well. She still ran her successful company with skill and determination, but she also made sure to save time for family dinners, school plays, art shows, and reading bedtime stories to Emma. She had finally learned that true wealth and success was not measured only in dollars and profits, but in love, laughter, and shared memories. One peaceful evening, as they sat together in their comfortable living room reading books while Emma worked on her homework, Victoria reflected quietly on how much their lives had all changed. "Do you ever think about that frightening day at the airport?" she asked Mark softly. "Every single day," Mark replied honestly. "It was the day when our real lives truly began." Emma looked up from her math problems with curiosity. "Daddy, please tell me the story again about how you saved Mom." Mark smiled warmly. It had become Emma's very favorite bedtime story, even though she had lived through all the aftermath. "Once upon a time," Mark began in his storytelling voice, "there was a single dad who loved his daughter more than anything else in the entire world. Many more years passed by peacefully and happily. Emma grew up to become a successful professional artist, but more importantly, she grew up to be kind, brave, generous, and caring, exactly like both her parents had taught her to be." Mark continued working at Sterling Industries for his entire career, eventually becoming Victoria's most trusted advisor and friend. His act of courage at the airport had been just the beginning. He showed that same bravery and integrity in every challenge they faced together as a family. Victoria never forgot the life-changing lesson that Mark had taught her, that real heroism is not about having power, money, or fame. It is about doing what is right and moral, even when it is difficult or scary, even when nobody else is watching or will ever know. On their 10th wedding anniversary, they made a special trip back to the airport where their incredible story had first begun. Emma, now 17 years old and preparing for college, came with them for this meaningful visit. "This is the exact place where Daddy became a hero," Victoria told a local news reporter who was writing a feature story about their unusual and inspiring love story. "I was not trying to be a hero that day," Mark said modestly. "I just tried to do what was right in that moment. I had absolutely no idea it would lead to all this amazing happiness and love." Emma hugged both her parents tightly. "I'm so glad that Daddy saved you, Mom. Not just because it saved your life, but because it gave us our wonderful family." The reporter asked Victoria what advice she would give to other successful business people. "True success is not about what you achieve or accumulate for yourself," Victoria replied thoughtfully. "It is about what you give to other people and how you make their lives better. Mark gave me everything by risking everything he had. He showed me that love is the greatest investment anyone can make." Walking through that same airport terminal that day, Mark remembered clearly the scared, desperate, broke single father he used to be. Those long, sleepless nights when he worried constantly about paying rent and feeding Emma properly. That struggling man could never have imagined the beautiful life he was living now. Not just the financial security and stability, though that was certainly wonderful. Not just the successful career he was proud of. The real miracle was the deep, lasting love they had built together as a family. Emma was now applying to the best art colleges in the country, and both her parents were bursting with pride at her accomplishments. Victoria had established a large scholarship fund specifically for single parents, helping other families like Mark and Emma used to be. "Do you think our lives would have been different if I had not taken that bullet?" Mark asked Victoria as they drove home from the airport that day. Victoria squeezed his hand lovingly. "I truly believe we were meant to find each other somehow. Maybe not in exactly that dramatic way, but I have faith that good people have a way of finding other good people when the time is right." Emma laughed happily from the back seat. "Plus, now we have the most amazing, how we met, story that anyone could ever have." That night, when Mark tucked Emma into her bed even though she always protested that she was too old for such things, she asked him the same question she had been asking for years. "Daddy, if you had to do it all over again, would you still take that bullet?" Mark smiled and kissed her forehead gently. "Every single time, sweetheart. Every single time without any hesitation. Because that is exactly what true love does to people. It makes you brave when you need to be brave. It makes you strong when you need to be strong. And sometimes, if you are very fortunate and blessed, it rewards your courage with even more love than you ever dreamed was possible." The single dad who took a bullet for a stranger became a devoted husband, a loving father, and a genuine hero, not because of what he did in one moment of danger, but because of how he chose to live every single day with love, honesty, integrity, and courage. They all lived not just happily ever after, but meaningfully ever after, knowing that every day of their lives was a precious gift that had started with one man's split-second decision to do what was right, no matter what it might cost him.